Washing our hands a lot is a very
Especially
good idea.
where you live is tier 3, so that's the worst one.
Oh,
you've been doing up there.
And Timmy, stop calling me because at the moment I'm broadcasting on the phone.
He's putting you in soft focus.
Yeah, can you, Timmy, put your phone down,
which
for
is
goodness sake.
It's a very Timmy thing to happen. It's
put you
in
know,
soft focus.
He's our celebrity here. Thank you, Timmy. The health secretary says coronavirus is back under control. Yeah. I'm going to tell you about my health condition a bit later on because sometimes I may make mistakes. I'm blaming it on the drugs. Anyway, he's revealed the UK's now secured 357 million doses of 7 different vaccines, and that requires all of us agreeing to take them. And I keep meeting people who say they won't. So let's talk to our friend Dr. Bharat Pankania from the University of Exeter, where he's a senior clinical lecturer at the medical school. Doctor, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Allowing people to move around for Christmas, you think, is a bad idea?
Well, it's a very bad idea. And of course, we are all very concerned because if we are infectious and crisscrossing the country, it will lead to a rise in number of cases. So we have to be careful.
Yeah. What about the people who don't know, who are at the end of their lives and they don't want to spend their lives? And there are many of them in this country and don't want to spend their lives locked in. We keep hearing about, oh, you've got to be careful of granny and all of that. Yeah. But a lot of them are, I'm just watching messages coming up. It's confusing me. A lot of them have got things they would like to be getting on with, and some are frightened and don't want to go out, and that's fine. But a lot of people are saying, well, I might not be here for more than a few more years. I don't really want to spend it locked in the house.
Yeah. I have a good answer for that, or I think it is a good answer. So
good.
I was explaining to people that, it's a family program, but look.
Listen, we're all adults, and if anybody is, we've got a 7-second delay. If it's too rude, we can use it.
No, it won't be rude, but it's graphic. When you're dying from SARS-CoV-2 infection, it's like you're drowning in front of your friends and family. It is not a nice death. So we don't want to get infected. You don't want to have a severe illness. You don't want to die. So this has to be taken seriously, because I do understand that people say, well, I haven't got much to live. And I say, well, live it as best as you can. And James, I'm with you. We mustn't restrict people who are almost sort of, fed up with being on their own, etc. It's not a question of restricting them. What we do really need are sensible regulations which allow us to be with our loved ones as well as remain safe. Unfortunately, the government makes the rules, and those rules apply to everyone, and hence the difficulties. I feel very sorry and sad. I was talking to my medical students today that her mother is intubating a lot of people, and she knows that many of them, once intubated, are not coming back. And she also said many of them are dying alone. This is a tragedy. It's a tragedy across the board on several layers. But
isn't it 50% survival if you get intubated? Isn't it 50-50?
Indeed, if that, yes. Yeah, and if I was the anaesthetist and I was putting my patient down, knowing that there's a big chance they're not coming up again, that's really hard. That's tough on the doctors and the nurses and everyone.
Yeah, but life is hard. And I don't want to upset people. I've got to be very careful, but you probably know I have cancer. Mm-hmm. And I may live, who knows how long any of us are going to live. I was telling you about my friend. I'm going to talk more about him later, I think. Mm-hmm. And death is something that is coming to all of us at some point in our lives. I don't want to be morbid about it. I would like to be a little more uplifting about it, if that's possible. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to end my days sort of just, locked up doing nothing and just fading away. I would like to live whatever life I have left. And a lot of people who are maybe in their 80s and some people in their 90s and I'm not quite that old yet, but not far off. And I just think a lot of people who've had very active lives and are not what we still think as old people, the way we've always thought of old people. But imagine some of the people who are old now around us. Think of the Rolling Stones, think of the rock music of the 60s that I grew up with. Those sort of, that's everybody thinks of, old people only want to hear Frank Sinatra. Well, cool. No, they don't. They're rocking. They were out in discos into the early mornings. It was a different sort of. We've not moved on in that way, in the way we talk about our elderly folk.
No,
because everybody has moved on.
You are right, and this thing has pained me a great deal because our loved ones have died alone, and that is horrific. So, in answer to your question, I was thinking as fast as you were speaking because I haven't got all prepared answers. But one of my answers is if we were allowed to run the show locally, then the local directors of health, the local experts, and the local outbreak control committee would be taking those decisions, and they would be taking those decisions almost on a case-by-case basis and saying, I understand, I have assessed this, yes, let us allow this to go ahead. At the moment, the way things are run, we haven't got those flexibilities because central government makes those rules, and then our loved ones, unfortunately, are left alone, and they're left alone for months on end. Whereas if, for example, I live in Bath and I was allowed to be the commander-in-chief of this outbreak, I would, at every case that you just mentioned to me, I would be saying, you know what, I've done an assessment here, I'm going to let that happen. And it would be much better, much kinder. It would be very variable, depending on.
And they're all set up. The councils have their own health departments, don't they? So it's already set up.
That is the most. Yeah. That is the most practical thing I've heard anybody say, and you need to say that more often, and you need to say that, sir, to people in the media.
Yeah, I totally agree. You see, once upon a time, when I was training in public health medicine, my director of public health was a commander-in-chief. And, she really was the local chief medical officer. And we took those local decisions for our local people because we knew our people. And it would be, we would be allowing things to happen. But here, most directors, let me put it better. Directors of public health have been silenced. They were told earlier on in the outbreak, keep your mouth shut.
Well, I suggest you don't, because whoever told you to do that is against free speech. And they ought not to be allowed to say things like that, because we need to know from experts, and you are one, how this can be best treated. Because, okay, apparently I'm in tier 3, but I live in the middle of nowhere. And
it's a big county, isn't it? It's a massive county. It's ridiculous.
I'm sorry anyway, but I'm because of my cancer, I'm not allowed to drive either at the moment. And I'm not going to stay just in the house and fade away. Otherwise, it seems to be a pointless exam.
Because Kent's got very urban areas, and then it's got very rural areas.
Yeah.
It's totally
but this is the same
areas,
all over the country. If you lived in the middle of Leeds, it's not like living out in the Yorkshire Dales, is it?
Well, look, James, between you and I, we've come up with a possible solution. And I'm saying to people who are listening is write to your local director of public health. You see, again, the difficulty is not many people are able to write. They're not articulate. But if you can write or get somebody to write for you and say, sir, these are my situation. I really want your help to allow me to interact in a safe way with my local family and friends. Please say so. Maybe eventually we will start to get local empowerment, local measures for local issues.
You make a very good point, because apart from everything else, I'm dyslexic. I'm not a good writer. But since the advent of the mobile phone, and many mobile phones now that have a dictation facility, it is amazing what you can write.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And spell check. So, it's a lifesaver.
And spell check.
Actually,
and, I dictate things all the time. Most of them are spelt badly. Just look at my Twitter. But
you dictate it, you can't
understood.
get it, spell it wrong. That's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
we might have hit something.
I think so. And, this is what I call regaining local control for your local population that you are the director of public health to look after. Otherwise, you're just a nominal symbolic person. And I would like deputations to me as director of public health. If I was a director of public health, I'm at the university instead. And I would sort of say, look, I am in charge of this place here. I have made this decision. I want my friend James Whale to see Mr. and Mrs. X, Y, and Z. And I've made an assessment and I've advised them, let it happen.
Good. And you're responsible for your own area. Everyone knows it's much better system.
Yeah, absolutely.
System. Yeah.
Doctor, thank you very much indeed. I hope people are going to take notice of what you said today, and we will, I'm sure, put that out as part of a recap of this interview too. Dr. Bharat Pankania, Senior Clinical Lecturer at the University of Exeter's Medical School.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr.